Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this very special podcast brought to you by the ICNA Council for Social Justice. And the podcast that you're about to be a part of and witness and be motivated to take action after you see the podcast. This is not for entertainment purposes. Today, we're going to have a discussion about our dear brother Imam Jamil Al-Amin. And we have a very special guest with us today to help us understand his physical condition and his conditions of confinement at this point. But the you will make the biggest difference whether or not this podcast and future podcasts has any impact whatsoever on the situation of this unjust incarceration. And now it seems, and beyond just seeming like, it is death by medical neglect. There have been many political prisoners and other folks in this country who have made tremendous contributions to the society. And because of those contributions, many, like Imam Jamil, have been framed, have been unjustly incarcerated. And during this period of incarceration, developed because of age and other factors, develop health issues. And this is the case with our dear brother Imam Jamil Al-Amin. And so before we listen to our special guest, I want to just play a very short video to kind of frame the discussion that we'll have today.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. All praise is due to Allah who has created man and has not left him, but indeed has given him guidance as to that which is liked by the Creator. And he has commanded upon man struggle with consciousness and awareness in his behalf. It is with this in mind that we see that the trust that has been given to man is always dispatched, for again the Creator has commissioned. He has commissioned the soldier to fight, to jihad, the teacher to teach, the organizer to organize. And for the Muslim, he has commanded that we invite, that we give an invitation. And the invitation again is based and centered around that you invite people to the consciousness and awareness that struggle is an ongoing process. For Allah has said in the Quran, He has created man to toil and struggle. The word that is used in the Quran for struggle is kabad, which gives a general sense of struggle, meaning that everything and everyone who comes into this life engages in struggle to survive. The baby, when he is born, he transforms from breathing a liquid into breathing a gas. It is said that when the egg is fertilized, there's a competition between the sperm for fertilization of the egg. And this is implanted upon the individual himself, so he knows the nature of struggle. But then Allah in the Quran commands a higher level of struggle, for He says into jihad, fi sabilillah, to struggle with an awareness and a consciousness. And so it is that kind of struggle that distinguishes the people. Those people whose commitment allows them to honor the trust, to become conscious and aware, and to struggle in a manner in which they first deal with themselves, and then that which emanates from dealing with yourself begins to involve the environment. That is the social context of struggle. And it is a struggle that is the higher form of struggle. So there is a sense of commitment that we make as individuals, and we ask the Creator with consciousness to guide our heart and to guide our tongue. We seek refuge in Him from misleading and from being misled, from betraying and being betrayed into ignorance by others. And on the basis of this commitment, we are able to distinguish those people who have made similar kinds of commitments. For indeed, in struggle and war, there is a kind of camaraderie that is forged in war, in the heat of war. So therefore, the communications are shortened between those people who struggle on that level. I don't need to come and tell you a whole lot about Kwame. It is evident. For Allah has allowed him to struggle in a manner that is clear to the people. Blessed are those who struggle Oppression is worse than the grave. He said it is better to live and fight for a noble cause than to live and die a slave. And again, it is with this understanding and awareness in this context that we begin to understand those people who were propelled, not just Kwame, and Kwame being, a leading figure from an era of movement and struggle, but the people whose names that Kwame may know and I don't know, and who other people know and other people might not know. It is that sense of struggle that Kwame has committed himself to, not that as we come forward and give applause or that we say things kind about him. Because with myself and Kwame, there are certain things that we can say in the shortest of forms that has a deep meaning. Because again, we have similar experiences in struggle. But we do extend an invitation to Kwame and to all creation that there is a level of commitment and consciousness that you have to make in struggle to be able to be successful, to take it from one level to another. How do we bring about good people? Again, when we look at ourselves in the context of the 60s, we see one of the major shortcomings was that we were emulating the people that we were fighting against. Our morals and our ethics were the morals and ethics that were taught by the people who we fought against. How do you raise a people? How do you, again, bring about a consciousness and awareness amongst humanity that makes them strive for the best? And again, it begins with ourselves. If you can't beat yourself, you can't beat nobody else. Everybody can fight, but everybody can't win. There's a discipline, there's a price that is paid to win. So the Creator, in not leaving us alone to figure out worship, has instructed us concerning worship. He says to be a better person, one has to be able to commit himself to a practice. He says prayer 5 times a day, for prayer restrains and keeps you from bad behavior. Fasting during the month of Ramadan, for it teaches you self-restraint and discipline. Charity, because you will not have believed until you want for your brothers what you want for yourselves. And Hajj, because it is that sense of community and pilgrimage that makes us aware that all come from two. And Allah says in the Quran, all come from two. And He has created the races that men might get to know each other, not that they would hate each other. The best amongst you is he who is most righteous. The companions of the Prophet asked him, what is righteousness? He said, good behavior. He said, of the things that will make you successful, there are 2. Taqwa Allah wal husnul khuluq. That is consciousness of the Creator and your ability to do good, to have good behavior. It is this sense of struggle that we left the 60s with, and we continue with an awareness that struggle has not stopped. It didn't begin in the 50s and end in the 70s. If our analysis of struggle is that it began in the 50s and ended in the 70s, then there is a total failure of closure on the part of our struggle that we are involved in. Again, no, the movement sense of struggle, which has always visited struggle. It says that the anti-slavery movement, Marcus Garvey's movement, the Black Power movement, Civil Rights movement, they come and they go. But the struggle is continuous until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has righted the wrong that has come about. Again, may Allah be pleased with the effort that has been put forth by all of the people who have struggled here. And again with Kwame, that he knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has raised him and that Allah has commanded in terms of a higher level of struggle from him. And that Allah will allow him to understand the importance in this life of making the declaration concerning that which is truth. And that Allah will allow him to understand in terms of that when Allah begins to move us from one condition to another, it's for a reason. And it's a mercy that He gives us time to reflect and to grow. So again, we ask Allah for a look that is merciful, a knowledge that is useful, a heart that is enlightened, a tongue that is truthful, an intellect that is unerring, a countenance that is pleasing to Allah. And may Allah give us success in this life and in the hereafter. May He raise us in the company of the righteous. May Allah allow the invitation that has been given to be accepted. Assalamu alaikum.
This short snippet is something that reflects the kind of heart, the kind of commitment to struggle that Imam Jamil Al-Amin had even before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided him to Islam in 1971. During the last few decades, we've had very defining moments that have characterized the struggle for the health and well-being of all people, some of them based in varying ideologies and some based in Islam, as Allah guided Imam Jamil and so many others to Islam. But I wanted us to just take a look at the kind of man that Imam Jamil was and is to this very day. Just quickly, he is actually inviting those people who were the leaders of the civil rights as well as the Black Power or the Black freedom struggle movement to Islam. He recognized, and they had to recognize, that Islam, according to Imam Jamil and to many of us, is the highest form of struggle, is the highest form of discipline. Now, I'd like to bring our two guests on, um, if we could. And I'd like to welcome our dear sister Maha and our brother Kairi. Assalamu
Alhamdulillah.
alaikum.
Wa
Walaikum
alaikum
salam.
salam wa rahmatullahi wa
Now,
barakatuh.
we really appreciate your taking the time and taking advantage of this opportunity to let the general community know about the health of our dear Imam and about the conditions under which he's being confined. But as I said at the outset, we want this to be something that will motivate action. There are so many brothers and sisters across the country who have been very active. But so let's just start with the son, the representative, and attorney Kyrie. If you could just tell us what's going on with your father as far as his health condition and confinement at this point.
Um, sure, inshallah. First and foremost, alhamdulillah, I always appreciate the invite, Imam, and the opportunity to do these kinds of things because keeping the public abreast of what's going on and just kind of keeping my father's name active is a big part of the campaign, of the movement, so to speak. So shukran, alhamdulillah. As far as my father's health goes, it is deteriorating relatively rapidly. Usually when I do these things, I try to sugarcoat as best I can, but that time's kind of passed. Um, we're dealing with a situation now where we're in real time watching the system murder my father. Um, the health care that they're providing is subpar at best. And even the facility that he's in, they're aware that they're unable to provide adequate health care, as the notes say in his medical history, medical report that we just recently pulled. The Imam has a litany of medical issues, including cancer, which we knew about. But recently, he's begun to deal with a swelling in his face. He has a baseball size knot in his face. And alhamdulillah, we were able to get that picture out to the public because saying it is one thing and seeing it is another. Um, they claim that they took him to the hospital for that knot, but I was discussing with the imam prior to going live. No hospital in America is going to see a human being walk in with a baseball on their face and tell them, well, you should see another doctor in 2 months. Maybe they can do something about that. And that's essentially what they've done to my father. Not essentially, that's exactly what they've done to my father. And alhamdulillah, with the pressure that we've been able to apply, they say they've moved the date up a little bit, but it's still January. He went to the hospital for this in November, and that was, what, 2 months after it appeared. That they took him to the hospital. So it's just a very slow, it's basically 3 to 5 business days for an emergency, and a follow-up appointment might take 2 months. Whereas if he were able to be at a place, say for instance, like a Butner, North Carolina, where they have a hospital on site, they could take care of him the way he needs to be taken care of. His eyesight's still not great. He's walking with a walker the best he can, but now they found blood clots in his legs. So they're it's mounting, and I can hear the exhaustion and kind of just the heaviness of this on him when I speak to him, and it translates. It translates to me for sure. But we have a fight to fight, and I tell people all the time we're gonna fight till there ain't nothing to fight for. But now the fight is two pronged. Well, it's been this before, but it's two pronged. We want him out. We want him free because he didn't do this. But we also have to make sure that while they are holding him, that he's being cared for adequately, and that also is not being done. Um, Maha, what am I missing?
Just to kind of expand on the severity of his condition, so everybody understands the urgency of it. The swelling is increasing. So the picture that everybody is seeing since then, that swelling has increased. He describes it as something that is, a hard material, but then there's a lot of fluid. So simply finding a doctor to drain that would give him a lot of relief. The swelling is so excessive that he's not able to chew properly. It's blocking him from being able to see out of that eye. It's disrupting his ability to hear. He is now unable to eat solids. Last I spoke to him, he was eating noodles if he was desperate for solids. And that was really all he could take in. And instead of providing him with proper medical treatment at a hospital facility, they're giving him Ensure. And Imam Jamil is, a big guy. He's tall. So this, of course, living on Ensure and noodles and not being able to take anything else is definitely making him weaker, and it's making it more difficult for him to walk. So, I mean, this is, aside from his innocence, right, and this wrongful incarceration, this type of treatment is just, it's appalling. It's unacceptable.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Sister Maha, what would you suggest be done? Not so much about the case itself, but about the conditions that they're keeping him under.
So every day I wake up, fall asleep, trying to figure out what else we can do. And, this case is so shocking to the conscience because there's no regard for his humanity, and they've dehumanized this man so much that they feel like it's okay to even, not even provide him with the basic necessities of what we would even say animals need, right? Like you would not even leave a pet like this in this condition with something growing out of their, neck and face and the inability to eat. He's 81 years old. So we, right now, I don't know how much you want me to dive into what we're doing, Kairi, but there was a lawsuit that was filed in federal court. Again, it's an Eighth Amendment violation. It's cruel and unusual punishment. I think it speaks for itself. We're in constant dialogue with the U.S. attorney, and the warden is in that correspondence and watching it. So we're trying to maintain that open line of communication to get through that requirement of the administrative process, requesting for proper treatment. Like this is very basic. It's 1 + 1 is 2. But unfortunately, you see that COINTELPRO still lives. It's alive and well and kicking. And there are things that happen that you just kind of sit back and you say, oh, wow, this is interesting how this is playing out. This is really just a simple process of transfer this man to a hospital. What's interesting is you see the staff at the facility itself saying in their notes, USP Tucson cannot provide him the treatment he needs. Please, when you transport him without a black box because it's evil. I mean, they don't say it that way, but essentially transporting this man who can't walk, who's, using a walker, who's very fragile, who can't take in food barely, and you're putting him in this cruel black box and chaining him, which results, in his most healthy day under these circumstances, results in his limbs being swollen, and it's torture. It's a form of torture. So you see that the staff is even, according to the notes, appears to be a bit disturbed by what's happening to him. So what we'd like to see and what we are demanding constantly is that they do the right thing and transfer him to USP Butner. We do, we want to thank everybody for making those calls. And, at this point, it's like any call that you think you can make to anyone that can make a difference, make the call, send the email. The worst case scenario is you won't get a response. We do ask that everybody maintain their professionalism so that it doesn't backfire. We're not threatening people. We're just saying, hey, do the right thing according to the law, according to the Eighth Amendment of our Constitution, and give this man medical treatment, transfer him. Of course, there is the element of we want his freedom, right? That's what we've been fighting for all these years. But right now, the priority is transfer him to a hospital, allow him to get the medical treatment he needs, because I believe if he does get that medical treatment, he does have some years ahead of him. He's still aware. He's still very much able to articulate. He does sound tired, and with every week that goes by, he seems more tired than the week before when you speak to him. So we want to see an immediate transfer. We want to see immediate medical treatment. We want people to make the calls and send the emails. And then, of course, like I know that there were so many people who were asking for, can the president pardon him? And there's all this confusion, right, because of the complexity of this case. Do you want me to keep going, or am I jumping the gun here? Keep going. Okay. But in this particular case, he is a state of Georgia inmate. And he's being held by the federal government under a contract between Georgia state and the federal government to house him. So Georgia citizens are paying taxes to house him in federal custody all the way across the country. Even when we found out the severity of his illness, I'm obsessively looking at tickets. They're $1,000, $800, $900, and then it's extremely difficult to get to him. So at the end of the day, it would have to be Georgia that would release him. So, and I'll wait to dive into the Innocence Project and all of that. But I did see some people asking for like compassionate release. Georgia's compassionate release is not very compassionate at all. It's unfortunately pretty cruel. And in Georgia, it's actually, there are different, they have different terminology, right? Mm-hmm. So what we would be asking for under this circumstance would be medical reprieve. But even that is, it's required that he be entirely incapacitated due to a progressively debilitating terminal illness. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, we're not there, right? We don't want to be there. That's not how we want him out. We want him out because he's innocent, and there's, piling evidence showing the injustice on the trial level and thereafter. We don't want to be there. Now, do we want it on their radar that he is very sick? Yes, we want it on their radar. That if he does, deteriorate more, that we want that process to be very fast. We want him released so that he can have time at home with his family. But alhamdulillah, we're not there, and I don't want to be there. As far as the president pardoning him, that's not an option because he's not a federal. He's in the custody of the federal government, but he is a Georgia state prisoner. So the president does not have the authority to do that.
Okay, that's very thorough. Kairi, would you like to add anything?
Just that I think the question at the top was what can people do, and so we just recently we can revisit this. We just recently updated the link tree list of to do items. So if you just go to freeimamjamil.com, it'll pull up the link tree with the list, and one is the phone call, the other two are emails, and then of course we still have the docuseries fundraiser up if you wanted to contribute to that. With that in mind, there are no fundraisers outside of the docuseries for my father. We don't have a need for money for anything else. Our attorneys are pro bono, alhamdulillah, and his medical care is at the expense of the government. They don't have a situation for federal inmates where we can bring in our own specialist or anything like that. We just have to depend on them to get him to one, and then they take care of it, with tax dollars and things of that nature. So if anyone's asking you to Cash App or Zelle or anything like that, it is not going to us. I don't know where it's going, but don't do that.
Right. Could you talk to us a little bit about the documentary that's underway?
Absolutely.
Where are we in that process?
Yeah, so alhamdulillah, our fundraising effort that CSJ, ICNA CSJ, and many other organizations took part in with Sheikh Omar and the Valley Ranch Islamic Center out in Dallas was very successful. We were able to raise quite a bit of funds. And since then, we've kind of just been storyboarding and putting this thing together. Alhamdulillah, we've been able to complete my father's audio interview We still haven't been able to get approved for a video, but he's done maybe 6 hours of audio interview for this thing for us. So that's great. And then we will be in Atlanta the end of January through the first couple weeks of February, filming all of our other interviews, as well as going to interview Otis Jackson up in prison where he is, as well, and then going to Alabama to do some shooting of the capture location. Once that's done, inshallah, by the summer we expect to have the full project finished, edited, and being re submitted to Netflixes of the world, so that we can go ahead and get this thing up and running. Because I believe still to this day that real public pop culture relevance is what we're missing. The law supports us at this point, and alhamdulillah, we're getting closer and closer to breaking that viral barrier. Our last campaign for this particular health situation has done well over 1.5 million impressions across all the platforms and people who have been involved in helping us push it. So that's our biggest campaign to date. But still, we need to be a trending TikTok topic and a trending hashtag on Instagram, and we need the young folks who are popping on those platforms to watch this docu-series and be just as upset as they were for the Menendez brothers, and to be talking about, why is this man not free? I believe that is the last step in these politicians, not lawmakers who have my father hostage, in letting them free. I think they just need to see that the backlash that they're going to receive from their higher ups is less impactful than the support they're going to receive from the public if they do the right thing.
Brother Kairi, I think it's important. The majority of the folks who may be listening and watching this particular podcast know who Otis Jackson is. Can you tell us who Otis Jackson is?
Sure. Yeah, Otis Jackson, in a nutshell, is the man who's been confessing to this murder for the past 24 years. Since day one, he's been he's been attesting to the fact that he committed these crimes. We have signed affidavits. He called and told the FBI and did an interview with them. He's testified now on video on the stand in another trial about doing this. And inshallah, he's going to tell the story again on our documentary. But he's been consistently confessing to this crime, and not only that, he matches the description that the surviving officer gave. He has the bullet wound in his shoulder that the surviving officer said that they put in him. So he's a suspect, a person of interest that never really got looked into appropriately. But now that we have more information, we're really trying to make sure everyone not only knows about him, but knows that he's been ignored by the powers that be. And then there's also another person that has since come into kind of focus as another potential suspect in this case. I don't know if we're going to talk. We don't need to necessarily talk about exactly who that is right now, but there are eyewitnesses pointing to him as well. So there, all of the evidence points to someone else besides the imam, and none of the evidence points directly to the imam, which still blows my mind as to how we got here in the first place. But they played the game the way they played the game, and it's not always fair. It's not always fair.
Yeah. What's so ridiculous as well is that reading the statements from the officer, the surviving officer, and even the statement from the one that passed, they said that the person that we shot and shot the officer was 5'8" and had gray eyes. And come on, anybody that knows Imam Jamil, he's anything other than 5'8" and having anything other than gray eyes. Even the physical description from the officers it just doesn't match at all. And Sister Maha, can you put in a context for us the political prosecution of Imam Jamil? Is this something that has been unique, particularly in the African American community, or is it something that was a very systematic way to try to eliminate individuals who were taking organized stance against the injustices in this country?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? So Imam Jamil's struggle goes back to the 1960s. I guess people are more aware of like the Rise of the Black Messiah, the movie, right? Judas and the Black Messiah, and COINTELPRO, where it targeted Black leaders who were likely to rise and empower the people at that time. So you have this man who is now 81 years old, but historically, you know, he was involved in Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in the 60s. He was involved with the Black Panther Party. He met with President Lyndon Johnson and spoke out against the Selma crisis, right, in the 1960s. He was very, very involved in the fight against Jim Crow. He organized the Black vote when that was not a popular thing. And then you go into his transition into Islam, and he is cleaning, you know, up the West End, making it a safe space for the people who live there. He was involved in the Bosnian task force against Bosnian genocide, right? And he was very outspoken about the liberation of the Palestinian people. So his entire journey is about empowering people and speaking out against injustices and systemic reform, and, you know, just generally empowering the Black community to know what it's capable of doing and protecting itself and feeding the people. And unfortunately, the history of this country is that's always been a threat. If there is someone who is dynamic, who is charismatic, who essentially he's not afraid of truth, you know, he's not afraid to speak the truth. He's not afraid to do what's right. He's not afraid to speak out against injustices. To them, that's a threat to the status quo. So, you know, the FBI did target him from the 1960s under COINTELPRO. It was very personal to him. It wasn't a general statement. He was named by J. Edgar Hoover in the COINTELPRO documents as a target. And they continued to target him through, you know, the 70s, 80s, 90s until they finally got this arrest and it stuck. So there were what I thought was 44,000 pages of FBI documents. But there's, you know, we come to find out like Arun, who's doing some research on this issue, he had more documents. And I believe the documents, the FBI surveillance documents might be closer to 99,000 pages. It's outrageous, right? It's outrageous. And anybody who meets Imam Jamil or speaks to Imam Jamil knows he is of service to the people. You know, what can I do for you? Is there anything I can do for you? That's constantly his line. And he, you know, he walks the walk. It's not just a line. He actually, if there is something he can do for you, he will do it. So unfortunately, you know, we have this, we glorify Dr. King and Malcolm now, but in their lives, you know, they were also demonized, right? America celebrates Dr. King now, but he was definitely on the list and targeted. And everybody that was targeted by COINTELPRO is no longer with us. Imam Jamil, Allah has decreed that he's still here with us. We all, you know, are indebted to him. So silence really is just not an option for anybody who, you know, we stand upon his shoulders, and he fought for us. Silence is not an option.
Yeah. You know, it's very important, everything that you said, but the last comment that you made is extremely important, because oftentimes leaders like Imam Jamil are looked at as just leaders providing leadership and opening the door for people of African descent. But it is the work of Imam Jamil and others that many of our Muslim brothers and sisters who are in this country today and who are benefiting from civil rights legislation and benefiting from voting rights legislation uh, have a debt of gratitude that they owe to the work of individuals like Imam Jamil Al-Amin. And so this work against oppression, as you said, is not just for a small group of people. It benefits the whole. And now it's time, as so many have, and many on in this podcast today have taken the time, have recognized the debt that we owe to those who sacrificed their entire lives for the betterment of the community as a whole. It's time for all of us and those who, for whatever reason, and not to evade the point, but there have been many people over the years who, because of the demonization of individuals, and specifically Imam Jamil, were afraid to come forward because they felt that they're going to catch some of that heat if they identify with his case. And but what I'm personally seeing now is a groundswell of support that individuals, for whatever reason in the past, did not come forward. I'm seeing many of them now through organizations and as individuals are coming forth. Now, am I misreading, Kyrie, the situation, or do you see
No,
more folks coming forward now?
no, for sure. For sure, more people are coming to the table. A lot of people who maybe didn't come to the table before, but again, that's as a result of doing the work. It's become more popular. You
Hmm.
know, when you have Sheikh Omar
Yeah.
doing events at his masajid, uh, it becomes a popular thing now to be a part of that movement. You know,
Now, what
he's
everybody knows
arguably
Sheikh Omar, but Omar who? What Omar are you talking about?
Imam Omar Suleiman.
Okay, thank you.
Arguably, I think if he's not, it's close, but I think he's the most popular as far as followers and things like that on social media imam in
Right,
our country. And
right.
so it's like, when you have his support, and then you get the Killer Mikes of the world and the Most Def Yassine Beys of the world, things like that, it becomes a lot more palatable to people, for them to jump on board. They're like, oh, okay, well, if these people are involved, I don't want to miss the boat. So for whatever reason, mashallah, we appreciate it. So keep
Yeah,
on coming. We
keep
need the
coming.
support. Again, that's what it's
Yeah.
about. So whatever motivates you, that's why we're doing all the different things we're doing. We don't care what the motivation is. We just
Hmm.
need people to start moving, and they are. So alhamdulillah.
Okay, Maha, Sister Maha, could you tell us some of the specific steps that we can take now to show our support for Imam Jamil?
Yes, absolutely. I know that Kairi brought your attention to freeimamjamil.com. It is
Hmm.
kind of what I call the one-stop shop. And Wasik did a great job with it. And Kairi, they're so organized. All you have to do is click, and they make it real simple and easy. It directs you exactly where you need to go.
Excuse me.
So,
Who is this Wasik person that you're talking about?
I
yes,
think
he is.
that's your best friend, isn't it, Email?
He is
No, that's
heaven
kind.
sent. Yeah,
Right.
heaven sent. Wasik is heaven sent. Allah bless him and his family.
Yes, I
It-
mean, I
It's,
mean,
it's been so
Even
wonderful
while
to
he's fighting
us.
through law school. So, y'all keep Wasik in your du'as. He fights his way through law school, but he's still on the team heavily, and he does what we need him to do whenever we need him to do it. Again, like Maha said, he's been a godsend through you. So, shukrani, man.
alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Oh,
Alhamdulillah.
did it come from Imam Khalid?
Wow.
Wow. Oh, Allah
Alhamdulillah.
bless you for that blessing, because
Alhamdulillah.
he
He's
is
been great. He's been
he's
great. As a
wonderful.
matter of fact, I don't want his head to blow up too much, but with his organizing students for Imam Jamil, it
Yeah,
really revitalized a lot of interest in Imam Jamil's case. So,
for
alhamdulillah, may
sure.
Allah reward all of you for what you've done and reward Basik.
I
Alhamdulillah.
mean,
I mean,
inshallah.
Okay, so what else? What else can we do, Sister Maha?
okay, so the call template is there. It's the first thing. You're calling, asking for his emergency medical transfer. You're emailing for the emergency medical transfer. And then there is the medical reprieve release. People are calling it compassionate release. But in Georgia, the compassionate release is a release for a few hours for an inmate
Oh,
to see a
Mhm.
family member who is ill. So kind of show know the difference in the terminology. It changes state to state or state to federal. In Georgia, what it would be for Imam Jamil would be a medical reprieve. Again, we're not there yet, but I want it on their radar so that if that happens, that it's expeditious and we can get them home. And then, of course, donate to the docuseries. And I'll reiterate what Kairi said. This is the only fundraiser. There is no other fundraiser that we are aware of that's benefiting Imam Jamil and the family. This is it.
I would never. I'd never ask the public to Zell me. That's not a thing. We just go to Launch Good, do the thing on Launch Good. Alhamdulillah.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
there was something you ran through, and I wanted to interject, and I forgot. It's okay. I'll remember it in a second. Go ahead, Ma.
Okay, and then definitely
Oh,
like
yeah, it's the compassionate release. So with compassionate release or medical reprieve, while I don't necessarily know if it's an option for us as far as the actual process, again, I want the people to remember the conviction integrity unit has options as far as what they are allowed to do. And one of those things is, release him based on like time served and the case isn't strong and his all those kind of things combined. His health, they see holes in the case and he's done enough of the time based on those things, they could still release him. So that's their form of kind of like a compassionate release. Like, hey, we didn't prove this. We can't necessarily say that you proved he didn't do it, but it's enough holes in it, and due to the circumstances, we'll release him. So I think that's maybe our strongest bet for like a compassion or medical kind of situation. But again, I don't know what else we got to show for
Right.
for this thing at this point. If we I wish the standard was still reasonable doubt, because there's no way that's not there now. But even whatever standard they're using, if he didn't do it, who did it? Here's two more people who people said did it. If it's like whatever you're asking for,
Right.
we can
Right.
hand it to you. They wanted corroborating evidence of Otis being there. So when they went to go see him, they got to see the bullet hole in his shoulder. So then that wasn't enough. So we're just trying to we're trying to figure out at this point, like, what do we have to show? And I think it's a groundswell of people saying this is ridiculous. And that's why we're presenting the docuseries as a true crime docuseries as opposed to an advocacy
Mhm.
documentary, because this is a very, even for somebody who doesn't know anything about the case or Imam Jamil, it's a very interesting story, even in the true crime, landscape. There's espionage and, tap telephones and setups and police involved. It's a very interesting story to tell. So we're going to tell it. And inshallah, in telling that story, it captures people and it moves more people to action. And we become that trending topic that I think we can become.
Yeah, Netflix seems to be doing a good job of those kind of documentaries like Who Killed Malcolm. And as a result of that, there was a momentum to actually identify the folks who actually did it and get the folks who were unjustly incarcerated out. Um, the Netflix documentary, will this be just a one and done, or will this be a series?
So we're shooting more than one episode right now. We're looking at a 2 episode miniseries. It might run into 3 episodes, but we'll
Okay.
see. But this one is primarily focused on his case. So we're not really doing his. If we tried to do his life and legacy, we'd be here forever.
Yeah.
But inshallah, if we can get through his case and be successful in what we're trying to accomplish with it, we plan to circle back and then be able to do the full kind of life and legacy of H.R. Brown, Imam Jamil. But again, it's hard to do that kind of story when we haven't gotten people to the point where he's innocent. And so we got to get him there
Right.
first, get
Right.
get the uproar, and then piggyback off of that with, well, we told you a bit, but here's the full story about who this man was. So that's the goal. And these kind of campaigns help because Netflix watches social media when they're looking at content that they're going to purchase, when they're
Mhm.
looking at, they check the algorithms and things like that to see, is this worth our time? And so that's why even, it was a time when you could go to Netflix with a documentary and they would fund it for you. Now, part of them seeing if there's real interest in your cause or whatever you're doing is to see if you can fund it.
Right.
So
Right.
getting it done is a big step in the right direction for us. And like I said, now that we're seeing 1.5 million, 2 million kind of impressions on the things that we're putting out on the email, that makes an impression on those streaming services. So inshallah, we just keep building, and we're almost to this goal that I've had for maybe 8 years now, trying to get this documentary done. So, once that's done, inshallah, the effect that I'm looking for and that I think it'll have, and we can move this ball a little bit closer to, the Imam finishing this thing out on the other side of the wall.
Alhamdulillah, that sounds good. Let me ask whether or not we have any responses or questions or comments from our viewing and listening audience. If so, if you could put it on the screen. Okay. Civil rights groups, comrades in the Black liberation struggle, and Black activists involved in this case. Is Black media a partner?
Yeah, for sure. They're coming along. SNCC has always been, active in helping us, with Cortland Cox and those guys over there. They've always shown love and support to the family. Um, Even, the newer organizations like Black Lives Matter and things like that have been involved. Black media is starting to pick up the ball because, again, of people like Killer Mike, when he goes on these podcasts and these shows with folks like Cam Newton or whoever, one of the segments he's gonna do is about Imam Jamil, and so these prominent Black figures are starting to pick it up. Same with Uncle Luke, the rapper from back in the day, who I had no idea had any activism in him. Yeah, he he
Yeah.
mentioned the Imam recently in an interview, and he
Right.
said that my father was one of the only two people that his parents would allow him to say he looked up to when he was growing up. So
Mm.
that's picking up as well. But again, it's a piggybacking kind of situation. We're doing what we can, and the more eyes we get on it, the better these days. I think we've done a pretty good job proving or getting people across that line of, oh, he probably didn't do this. Now, as they come into more information, they're beginning to pick up the ball and run with it. And that's really, really important because we can only do so much. We need folks to take it and go.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. Any other questions, comments from our viewers?
There's
Okay.
lots at work.
So who is the students for Imam Jamil? Yeah, this is very important. Maha, could you comment on?
Yes, I saw in the comments, I do follow some of the posts and see what people are saying. And I'll see, they're not answering the phone or they're not, and it's okay, just call. Even if they don't answer the phone, when the phone is ringing over and over and over, they know exactly who you're calling for.
Right.
The operators are very aware that the outside is concerned. We want that concern to continue until there is change. And again, we reiterate the request is to transfer him. We want to maintain professionalism so that those requests don't backfire on us. But it's just asking them to do the right thing. So definitely, like Wasik said, call throughout the week. If you called once, call again. Email, ask for updates. It's okay. I mean, we have the right to demand that the government follow its own rules, right? We have the right to demand that. So.
Absolutely. I've been calling, thinking I was calling, wouldn't have any problems calling the chaplain at the facility where he is. And I've been robo-calling. I've been calling. And he said, well, why do you want to talk with him? And I said, oh,
Yep.
we're from we give Qurans and prayer rugs. And I thought that would work. That didn't even work. So, yeah,
Nah, they
but
know better.
call anyway. Yeah, that's the bottom line. Call anyway. Okay, we have anything else? We have a few more minutes here. Whatever happened to DA Fani Willis and Integrity Unit supposing to look into this and support another trial?
That is still open. Obviously, I think Kairi went over the three options that the DA has. The DA has assured us that they're not going to close this until every stone has been turned. I mean, they are not giving up on this case. However, it does seem like the mark keeps changing and moving. I'm not sure what else they want. There are so many holes in this case. So I believe, and Kairi believes, and I think the entire legal team believes that we have given them enough to, at the very least, say that he's entitled to a new trial. Because on the trial level, there were so many constitutional violations. There was so much evidence that was left out. There were FBI records that were not provided to the defense. I mean, the list goes on and on and on as to why he would be entitled, at the very least, to another trial. But it's still open. The Innocence Project is actively involved in this case. They are appalled at the condition that Imam Jamil is left in at this time. So people are moving on this case. And we're trying our best. And I think that Kairi's vision of bringing this case to life and having the interviews on camera and just bringing a visual to the public so that they can see what we see every day, at how appalling it is that there are so many holes in this story and there's no evidence tying this man to the crime and what happened on the trial level and violation of his Fifth Amendment rights and on and on and on, that would force them to say we have to do something, so it's active. The short answer is it's active, it's open. They still have the ability to do the right thing. And we're hoping that they do that soon.
Okay, very good. Let's take maybe two more. Any other comments or questions? Is there a list somewhere of the groups and activists involved with or supporting justice for and the release of Imam Jamil? Such a list would make it easier for journalists and media to have sources.
Wasik.
Yeah.
That's
a short answer.
Yeah, that's right. It's Wasik.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
students. If you email or go to _free Imam Jamil on Instagram, and you can contact the Students for Imam Jamil account from there. Just shoot them an email, and they can get you a list of everyone that's been involved thus far. I'm sure, especially if it's a media request.
Yeah, very good. Okay, let's take one more question or concern. Is there a high quality version of the Imam in prison available?
That picture? Are we talking about picture? I don't know what that, a high quality version of what?
Right.
It's very difficult to get pictures from the prison so that everybody knows. It's very
photo.
Yeah, it's very
the photo that we have, even that was just a photo of a photo. So it's like Maha said, it's very difficult to get photos of the Imam. The one that we just put up on, the campaign photo, that was the most recent photo that we had. And again, that was a photo of a photo, and that's all I can really say about that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not even allowed in with a camera, so it's interesting, the dynamics there.
Right. Any closing comments from either one of you or both of you before we put some contact information on the screen?
Maha.
I'm trying. It's gotten to the point where we did so many of these over the years, right, Kairi? And sometimes it's just a loss of words, and it's so shocking as to how the story continues to unfold. And Imam Jamil, even in his hardship, is like a lesson to us all. He is constantly reminding us, that this is Qadr Allah, that this is Allah's plan, that he doesn't give up the fight ever, but whatever is written, and we put in the work, and Allah is in control. It's really hard to watch Kairi go through this and to watch the family go through this, and to know that this injustice has, unfolded over 24 years, and to know that this man has suffered. This is not his first time going through this. He was in the Supermax, and this happened, I was looking at the date, Kairi, it was 10 years ago, 2014. And it was the outrage of the public of his condition in Supermax that resulted in him getting to Butner and getting that medical treatment that he needed, and him getting out of the Supermax into Tucson ultimately. So, sometimes it seems like we're calling and nothing is happening. But I think that we really just need you to make those calls. We need those emails to go out. We need them to know that the public is demanding better for this civil rights leader, for this human rights activist, for this man who essentially has had 24 years of never causing any problem. He's been, there isn't a warden that complains about his behavior. He's always respectful to the staff. He doesn't cause any problems. So for this to happen to him is utterly disgusting. And of course there's a legal aspect to the struggle, and we're filing those pleadings, and the complaint is filed. And there is a social aspect, and Wasik and Kairi are hitting the ground running on that. But there's also a spiritual aspect. So of course, we're asking that people make dua and that, people recite Quran on his behalf. But the fight's not over. The fight's not over. So we need to continue. We need to be louder, and we need to demand justice for him, as he has, lived his entire life demanding justice for us.
Very good. Attorney
Alhamdulillah.
Kairi.
That summed it up pretty well.
Yeah.
Like she said, we've been doing this for a long time. At this point, it's a lot. I'm tired. I'm upset a lot, but I'm not broken yet, and we still got a fight to fight. So, I appreciate those who have been able to assist us in this fight. Hopefully, that continues to grow, and inshallah, we'll be doing one of these in the future with him sitting next to me instead of fighting for him to get out of that situation that he's in. So, shukran to everybody, and especially you, Imam. And just continue the struggle with us. We appreciate it.
Alhamdulillah. If we could just put some contact information on the screen now as we close. And
I think they can find those on the intro in the video description. I can't put it on I don't have it with me here. So
okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Very good. Very good. So I want to thank you all. Sincerely thank you all for taking the time to help us understand where we are right now with the case of Imam Jamil Al-Amin. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all for your consistency, because it's not easy to maintain a level of involvement over so many years. It's very draining. I know all of us have been involved in cases where it just seems like there's no end. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings a closure, and that closure oftentimes results in not a death, but a release and a celebration. So we shouldn't be downhearted. I know that it's very difficult. I mean, I personally had gone through a 19-year struggle with, at that time, my son-in-law, who was one jury vote away from the death penalty, and he was finally exonerated. So I know how tiring this can be, but we have to maintain our spirits and everything that we can do. If I can tell some jokes or something like that to make you feel better, I'll do whatever do whatever it takes. But just continue, and I know that you will. I'm just saying that your struggle on this situation is very much appreciated. It's very much needed. Wasik, Ajan, anyone, Mari Salakan, anyone who has been involved in any aspect of this work at any point, we very much appreciate that. But we need your continued involvement and continued pressure. So please, let's leave this with an agenda, and that agenda being that we're going to increase what we have done on behalf of Imam Jamil, because while we're helping him, we're helping our own soul, we're helping ourselves with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by helping the oppressed and helping those whose injustices are so blatant. This issue of medical death by medical neglect is a real thing, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward anyone who's trying to break this hideous cycle that this prison industrial complex has imposed on those who are struggling against the injustices in the society. So we want to thank you for thank the audience for staying with us throughout this podcast. We want you to be aware that there will be future podcasts coming, and we pray that Imam Jamil is released from that situation that he's in, that death throw situation that he's in, very soon, and come back to his family, come back to the community, and come back to those who supported him over the years. So please make dua for the supporters, the family, and all those who are making prayers on behalf of our Imam. On that, we'll close. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.